Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria, the host of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, and success. And our guest today, Cheryl Fields, is going to help you do just that, especially in the area of finance. Cheryl Fields has been an entrepreneur for over 35 years when her life took a drastic turn of events, and she was virtually starting over at 47 years of age. She realized she didn't understand how money worked, so she decided to become a financial advisor and was hired by a global investment firm early in 2008, just as the market came crashing down. She saw people losing so much of what they worked for all of their lives. She realized she could not believe in a system that lets that happen to people. And now, for the last 12 years, she's been sharing the strategies that the wealthy have been using for over 100 years. Cheryl is a highly paid speaker at industry and corporate events, but her heart is in financial education and pulling back the curtain on Wall Street, the banks, and the IRS to help American families keep more of the money they make. And welcome to the show, Cheryl Fields.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled that you are here because I knew that this was one aspect of the Sanity Project, which is part of the Sanity Project podcast, that people need to learn more about. So what are you going to help people with today, Cheryl?
Well, I love the title, The Sanity Project and the Sanity Project podcast, because especially in the last 6 months or whatever, we've been living in a very insane world, a world that's changing so quickly in ways that most people had never even imagined. At least I know I never imagined that we'd be quarantined and we'd have all these things going on. And so it's cause for a lot of, emotional and, just unrest and dissatisfaction and people trying to figure out what they're going to do next, what's next for them. And so I would love to talk today about how we can actually be sure that we have a rock solid financial foundation coming out of this, whatever might be the new normal. I don't know if there is even a new normal, but what we can do to actually make sure that at least one area in our life is solid and secure and will help us spring us forward back into whatever the new reality is.
I appreciate that because you talk about helping people understand the 4 pillars of financial security, and 4 in the other worlds is the number of foundation. So what Cheryl is bringing here today, audience, is an opportunity for you to build your own foundation for your own financial future. So what would be the first step that people should take after they call you?
Right. Well, like I said, I do call myself a financial educator, so I do have a free program that I offer, and I'll give you more information on that. But the first thing to do is to just really ask yourself, and I feel like we all have been, one of the things I talk about, how we've all been given the same information when it comes to how we should build our wealth over our lifetime, and that's to be in the market. The stock market's going up and down. And we're just supposed to be okay with that. And what I found when I started doing my research and talking to wealthy people in 2008 and looking for what was another, I knew there had to be another way, because what I realized was that wealthy people didn't start over every time the stock market crashed. And they always had time and money, and not only enough money for their lives, but they had enough money to pass on. Mm-hmm. And I said, wait, none of that stuff came up in financial advisor school, right? Nobody had a system for that. But I realized the wealthy people did. And so I just started, learning and studying and talking to wealthy people, reading books. And so, I really suggest that people realize that right now we are it's a reset for everybody financially, because we have had another crash. I've only been in the business 13 years and I've seen 2 crashes. And, how many times do we want to do that? And most of my clients, if, they'll say, I just want to get off the carousel. I'm just tired of the ups and downs. I want to get off the carousel. And so I remind them that Warren Buffett's 2 rules of investing are never let your money go backward is rule number 1. And rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. Mm-hmm. So he thinks it's pretty important. And so that's what I feel is really a good a place to start is, are they tired? Are you tired? Is it working for you? Because if it's not working for you, most people think, well, it's just because I don't know enough, or it's just because I haven't saved enough, or it's just because everybody else knows what they're doing, but I don't, and I hear that all the time. And it's not that. It's that, there's so many fees inside of the funds that they tell us to invest in. There's so many, there's just so much that goes on behind the scenes. And I talk about that in my program. But the thing is, I just pull back the curtain and show everybody how that happens. And so it's not you. If you're listening today, it's not you. It's the fact that, people have been given the same information for the last 30 years, which is, put your money here in a 401k or an IRA or whatever. And, we just feel that there's a much safer, a much better way to do that. And that's what we talk about. But the first part is education. And so it takes an open mind. But if somebody's willing to do that, we do it strictly by using the IRS tax code and everything's safe and secure. But we just want people that, are just saying, hey, is there something else out there?
Well, when you're talking about the 401ks and the IRAs and changes that people can make and how you can educate them about that, can you share any specifics?
Well, sure. Like right now, the government has, because of the pandemic, has allowed people to take money out of their tax deferred accounts, which are accounts that you haven't paid the tax yet. You'll be paying the tax when you take the money out. And one thing I tell people is that deferring the tax not only defers the tax, but it defers the tax calculation. And so what that means is, because you're putting your money in today and I believe is a pretty low tax rate, because, the government's just passed out another the government's $23 trillion, $26 trillion in debt, just passed out another 3 or 4 trillion. I'm sure there's plenty more to come. And remember, the government doesn't make or do anything to generate its own wealth. It just takes from people like you and me that pay taxes. So that's a real concern. So one thing to as a specific to start thinking about now is, right now there's a window where if you're under 59 and a half, you can actually take your money out without penalty. And so there are restrictions and our guidelines that you want to follow with that. But that's one way that people can realize, well, wait, then the rules are changing. And what I tell them, what I tell people all the time is that, remember, when the government's just passed out all that money for assistance, which I'm totally not against. I know as Americans, people need that. But the thing is, I always say they bang the gavel to pass it out, and they're going to just bang the gavel to collect it back.
Yes.
And so we're not going to have say in that. They're not going to put it out to a vote, and we're not going to give our opinion. They're just going to make the rules. And so, we could be facing, much higher taxation in the future. And another specific that I talk about is, and of course I back all this up and I have charts to show all this, but just to boil it down, for about 40 years in American history, from about the mid 50s to about the mid 40s to the mid 80s, taxes were well over 60%. Several years over 70, some years over 80, and for 2 years they were over 90%. And so we have to think about that. Remember, those people didn't get to vote on it either. And so, it's just right now it's a concern. And I think that we have to realize what's going on in the world. And with spending that money, the government's allowed to print money, right? Wish we could do that, right? That would be great. Like go on a big shopping spree and come home and just print the money up and send it out. So, and we don't have that luxury. And so it's a time for us I just feel like it's a time for us to be informed, and a time for us to know what our options are.
Well, what are some of the options? It's interesting when you write that the importance of increasing their cash flow. How can people increase their cash flow and have tax-free income in retirement? But also, I, of course, am curious as to what the extremely wealthy people do to have enough money, not only to do whatever they want, as we can see on various online websites, but they have leftovers to pass on to their family.
And that's exactly what I teach. And, right. I mean, we just all think that's only for the wealthy, but it's not. Again, it just goes back to the 4 pillars, like I talked about, like, you mentioned, increasing your cash flow. There's, to boil it down into one simple statement, it's where you store your money is way more important than anything else. So what the wealthy people understand is letting your money grow tax-free, having an underlying guarantee, and making sure that your money can never go backwards. So what that provides for you is increased cash flow now, because you don't have to go to the bank to borrow money. You can actually borrow from yourself and pay yourself back in that's how it ends up working. And then so you can save that interest money. I talk about how the banks are making over 100 times the money that they're giving you. Again, simply you put your money in the bank, and they give you 1% on it or whatever, and they act like that's a big deal. But yet, by law, they're allowed to loan your money out 7 times. So they loan it out to somebody for a house at 4%, somebody for a car at 5%, somebody for maybe business technology at 10%, then maybe like recreation, like a boat or a cruise or something like that at 12%, and then 3 or 4 credit cards at 20 or 25%. And so now the bank is making over 100% on the money that they're acting like it's a big deal. They're giving you 1% on. And so we talk about how you can bring that interest money back to you and to your family. We talk about how you can let your money grow tax-free using the IRS tax code, completely legit, above the books. And then be able to know that you'll have lifetime income in retirement. Because what's happened is baby boomers' number 2 fear is dying. Their number 1 fear is running out of money. And so that's because they believed in a system that was started by 2 gentlemen at Johnson & Johnson, Stuart Whitehouse and Ted Benna. And they actually wrote an article. Well, there was an article published January 17th in the Wall Street Journal. January 2nd, 2017, on the Wall Street Journal front page, that said that they lamented that they had positioned that as a retirement vehicle for the American family. They said it was never meant for that. But they basically said that they tried to stop it during the Reagan years, but Wall Street had a hold of it and they couldn't stop the machine. And so they've known for years that this is not the best way. And we can see that evidenced by what's happening now with baby boomers, because their number 2 fear is dying. The second thing, another, very important fact that most people are surprised and totally surprised to find out, is that by taking money out of your tax deferred accounts when you're in retirement will make your Social Security, 85% of your Social Security will be taxable. So that's
really
why yeah. Now, people have worked with financial advisors for 20 and 30 and 40 years, and I don't know if that ever came up.
I've never found.
Well, I've never heard anybody say, oh yeah, I know, I don't care, that's fine, I'm putting my money in there. So if it costs you $10,000 a year in tax, in your first 10 years of retirement, that'll be $100,000.
That's ridiculous.
You're giving away. Yes. And so this is what the wealthy know, right? But it's not just something you can sit down and I can just like lay out for everybody right now on a broadcast. But the thing is, I do have a boot camp that I do, a 3-day or a 4-day boot camp. It's free. And I teach all the strategies. I teach all the stuff. So that then people have a way of, they go, oh, now I see. Now I understand. And so then it lets them know that there's other options out there for them.
Yeah, that's amazing. The secrets that people keep, the ones who have the power and control, and they keep these secrets. I've experienced some things in different arenas recently myself, and it's like after a year, I go, why didn't I know this? Well, why didn't I know this? And they just keep it for themselves. There's the 1%, we have the 1% of the 1%, of course, know everything.
Right.
And, not just the 1%, because those are not, they're big, but the 1% of the 1% is something really special. Yeah, exactly. And again, I mean, my those are not my clients, right? My clients are what I call everyday Americans. Those are the people. I was a mom that bootstrapped businesses from the time I got out of high school, starting or buying and selling or whatever. And I bootstrapped all the way, and I raised 2 girls. And so like my heart is with people that just are asking for some truth and some clarity so that they can build a life for themselves and their family. So this is not a get rich quick thing or anything like that. Again, it's just about strategies. And I have a whole group of strategies that I use, and we take it on a one-on-one basis. So, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I absolutely love doing it. And, as things have gone virtual, it's great to be able to be like with you here on the podcast and be able to help people understand that there's education out there that's available to them that is free and might help them look at things from a different perspective. And for those of you who are listening and want to know more information about the live/free bootcamp, you can find out more at rhythmofriches.com. That's RHYTHM, Rhythm of Riches. Rhythm of Riches, right? Exactly. Yeah, ofriches.com. And I sometimes have to spell the words out because not everybody speaks English who listens to this. No, that's fine. American. So it's like I've got to
What
spell
is that?
things out. It's not that I don't think you can understand people or don't know what I'm talking about. For some of you, though, English is not their first language.
And rhythm
And
is not an easy word to spell.
no, that's why I misspelled it the first time. I'm going to do it again. RHYTHM. rhythmofriches.com. And it's on right now. If you're listening to this, that's how you find it. If you're reading about this on my website page or any other page that this Cheryl Fields podcast is on, you will see this link.
That's right, Rhythm of Riches. And again, I do the class every 3 or 4 weeks. So depending on when you're actually hearing this or listening to this, always you can feel free to message me or check in with me, and we'll probably give you that information later.
And you can get Cheryl at Cheryl, Cheryl, at lifestylewealthgroup.com. So would you give the audience an example of a recent client that you helped change their life?
Yes, I'd love to do that. I'll give you 2 of my favorite stories, and both of these are women. One woman, she was in her mid-60s, came home one afternoon from work, she's an artist, came home one afternoon and her husband said, yeah, it's really been great, but I'm kind of over you. I have a girlfriend. I want a divorce. And she was a referral from another client. So she called me, my client called me and said, she's really in a mess. She's really in a hard place. Can you help her? And I said, sure. So we started from the beginning. We helped her get, open up her own checking account, get her credit cards in her name, she had an old 401k and different things. And we got everything situated so that it would be most beneficial to her. And she was pretty broken at the time, of course. And so I asked her, I said, if there's one thing I could do for you financially, what would it be? And she said, you know what? I would just like to be able to go like 1 week a year somewhere out of the country and just be able to go and relax. She says, I don't care if I have to fly on coach. I don't have to care what kind of hotel I stay at. I don't care. I just want to be able to do that. Can you possibly make that happen? And I said, oh, absolutely. We can make that happen. So fast forward, she's been a client now for about 5 years. I checked in with her. It's been a couple months now, but I called her just to check in on her. And it was really noisy in the background. I said, where are you? What are you doing? She says, oh, I'm in Paris. I said, what are you doing in Paris? And she goes, I'm doing exactly what you told me to do. And I said, oh, what are you talking about? What did I tell you to do? Or what are you talking about? She says, well, you told me that if I just took my paintbrushes and wherever I wanted to travel, if I just took my paintbrushes and taught classes where I went, that I could write it off. And she says, I've been in Paris for 3 weeks now teaching in Parisian cafes. And she said, I'm having the time of my life.
Wow.
And she came back and she calls me. She goes, I don't want to ask too much, but hey, do you think I can buy a house? And so we looked at what she was doing, and she never thought she'd be able to buy a house. And I said, sure. And so she's bought now what she calls her dream home, lots of light. It's her studio. And so that's one of my favorite stories. Another one is a woman that I met I just met her randomly through social media. And we started talking, and I asked her the same question. She said, I'm tired of my money going up and down. And she's actually, she came from Africa, and many, many years ago, her family is all still back there. And she became a university professor and is just a wonderful healer and just a fabulous woman. And so her family's from Cameroon. So I asked her the question, so if I could do one thing for you, what would it be? What would be really meaningful? And she said, one day I would really like to build a house for my sister back in Cameroon. And she had her sister has 5 kids. And I said, well, okay. So we started looking at that. So we looked at how we looked at her taxes, and this was at the end of 2019. And she said, oh, I've already paid all that money in, all that money's gone. And I said, no, it's not gone until you can still ask for a refund. So we got her set up in an account where she was and she actually got a $30,000 refund that she didn't even know. I worked with her CPA. And so she called me crying shortly after she worked with the CPA, and she knew this money was coming. And she called me crying, and she said, you know what? She said, my nephew, her sister's son, just called in a panic. And the man that they were living with was not the dad, but he was being abusive. And he says, my mom is in really serious, this is a serious situation, and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And she said, so Cheryl, she said, I wrote the check. I wrote the check for the foundation. and the people of the village are coming to build the foundation. I'm going to write the check in 2 weeks for the walls, and then we're going to put the roof on. And she said, none of that would have happened if I didn't have the confidence to know that this money was there for me, and that now we've switched all of her money over. So now it's safe, it's growing tax-free, and now she feels like she has a replenishing source of wealth, which gives her the freedom to be able to feel like she's got financial freedom.
Well, good for you. You do a lot of good stuff, Cheryl.
It's just exciting. I meet so many interesting people, and it's so motivating.
Well, I was watching something on television recently, and as far as recent, and I'm going to say it's recent, in 1970, most women had to have a checking account. If they wanted a checking account, it had to have their husband's name on it.
That's true.
If they wanted to rent anything, they had to have their husband's name on it. They couldn't rent an apartment or a house. And people don't realize, I mean, that's 50, it's nothing. It's not 500 years ago. It's 50 years ago.
Exactly.
So the empowerment there that you are able to share the possibility of these women achieving is just amazing. And people seem to have forgotten, most of the people have forgotten what really went on in the 2008 crash. It was very devastating. It was very deceitful.
Yes.
There were deals made that when you read about them, at the time I didn't read about them myself, but I think people need to educate themselves about how that, what happened there beyond what your
right.
perspective and points of view, because the people have to know what's gone on in the past so they don't get caught in it again. And if if the government, which the government was a big part of, and Wall Street was the precursor of this fallout, crash, whatever you want to call it, financial pandemic, they have to know, they have to be aware and be educated in that arena.
And see, there's no consequences for a lot of that. You look back at what happened. Of course not. Yeah, there's no consequence. So why don't they do it again? And it used to be that they would crash the market every 10 years. Now they're crashing it every, 8 or 9. And so, it's all about, so the wealthy get wealthier in a way, and the poorer get poorer. But by educating ourselves in the ways that the wealthy do things. And I'm not talking about the top 1% of 1%. Mark Zuckerberg is not my client. I can be fully disclosed about that.
Sure. But, full disclosure here, people.
Full disclosure here, people. But, but for most Americans, I can make a significant difference. And it's, and again, I'm not the only one doing this. There's hundreds of thousands of people across the country that have accounts like this. I call mine a lifestyle reserve account. And it's just helping people to really understand that where they store their money is the most important thing. And if we can keep it out of the clause or the, out of the system, quote unquote, which, like you were just pointing out, continues to eat away at your wealth and has no consequences, doesn't have to disclose it. If we can be educated, then we can know that we can actually do things in a much different way. And I believe in abundant thinking. I believe if we're always worried about our money and we're always thinking it's going to crash again and it's going to, it's funny. When I got into the business in 2008, the market was, I think, at 12,000. And over the next few years, it doubled to 24,000. And so I say to clients all the time, I said, aren't you so excited? You got all your money in the market. Aren't you so excited that it's doubled? And they're like, yeah, the market's great. And I'd be like, well, let me ask you a question. Did your account double? They'd be like, well, no, my account is actually right where it was. It hasn't moved. And I said, so that's what we want to talk about. That's what we have to pull back the curtain on, because why is that? Why can we talk about how fabulous the market is, but yet people aren't? And I'm not saying everybody. Some people are probably making great money, but that's great. Do you want to be a person that's stuck to the data every day? Or do you want a foundation that's just going to, every day you wake up, your account is worth more? And that's what I call it, a replenishing sense of wealth. Our word currency comes from the Latin word from a river, to flow. It's supposed to flow. But when we tie up our money in the tax-deferred accounts, it's like cutting off the blood supply to your arm. You don't have access to that money when you need it for stuff in life. We all need to borrow money from once in a while for things. I'm not saying go in debt, but I'm saying, it doesn't make sense to pay cash for some things, right? And so when you want to borrow money, you can't do that if one arm's cut off from the circulation of the flow of your money. And so we talk about how it gives you an abundant mindset. And if there's one thing I could tell you, my clients really have abundant mindsets. They realize that, I like to tell people sometimes when the market goes down like 700 points in a day, and I have, I take my newest clients for the last 60 days or whatever, and I send them a text and I go, guess how much you lost today? And they'll be like, oh my God, how much did I? And I'm like, you didn't lose anything. Remember, I promised you didn't lose anything. Like, oh my gosh, you're right. And so it's kind of a fun thing, but it's a reality for them. If they're like, yeah, I understand what you're saying now. You're right. I didn't lose a penny.
There we go, people. Cheryl can be found at lifestylewealthgroup.com. I hope I don't have to spell that for you.
No.
And not for you, but for the audience. And if you really want to get in touch with her right away, you can email her at cheryl@lifestylewealthgroup.com. And give one tip before we close this session. Give one tip that people can do right now, that they can do. One strategy that maybe it's part of your boot camp or not, but one thing that they can do right now for themselves.
Well, again, like I would love for them to sign up for the boot camp, only because that's 3 days of an hour each day, 45 minutes each day, where
Sure.
I just dig deep into all this and I explain it, because I know it's puzzling. But what they could do right now is, and I know this is all, most people haven't heard of all this before, and they're like, what? So the thing is, so many things you can do. One thing that you could do that would be, but you have to be sitting down to do this, is to go to US Debt Clock, USDEBT and you will see how fast the national debt is increasing. It's increasing by hundreds of thousands of dollars. You'll just watch the clock tick. And for me, that's a site it's a third-party site, but they talk about the national debt, and you can actually click around and it'll say how much right now. I think every person in America owes $153,000. And that includes my 2-year-old grandson. That includes your grandmother who's 97. That includes all of us working, all of us retired. If we're going to pay off the national debt, and it's probably more than that because I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but realize that I think the one thing that people need to understand and most of, and to start to put into their awareness, is how taxation is going to affect us. One of the quotes that I opened my presentation with is Robert Kiyosaki's quote, which is not how much you make, but how much you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. And of course, he's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so that's what I believe is the financial strategy we should be thinking about. And again, I'm not in the real estate space like Robert Kiyosaki is, but I'm in the space where I can help you grow what you have into something that will be lasting for you and your family. And so tax-free right now is a big buzzword. And it's something that, I think if listeners could do one thing today, that would be something that they just need to start paying real big attention to. Yeah. Because we pay taxes for not only income tax, but there's property tax, sales tax, tax at the gas pump, tax every time you turn around. And one of the things that I share with people is that many Americans are living on only 27 cents out of every dollar they make, because they're paying taxes and they're paying interest, and that equals the rest of it. So if we can bring back some of those taxes and some of that interest, it goes right back into your lifestyle money. And that's what I'd like them to think about.
There we go. Cheryl Fields, Cheryl at lifestylewealthgroup.com. I thank you for being here today. And I want to tell the listeners, please go to Apple, where this this episode is, and give Cheryl 5 stars, because she has given us more information. I'm going to sign up for the boot camp, and absolutely. And I'm going to share it with other people on my
that's great.
social media, because this is what people need to know. They don't know, because the number used to be much lower, that, people are born in debt already. Once they're born, they're in debt. And now if you're at $153K per year, it's going to be worse than that by the end of 2020, because the money that's been given out has to be repaid to a certain extent somehow, and it's not going to come from anybody but you. And that's you, the listener. I thank you for being here, Cheryl Fields, today. And I want people, you're more than welcome. I'm really excited about that you are here as a guest. For those of you who are listening, go to my website, AskJoanneVictoria.com. I've expanded my coaching circle spectrum to include true calling. I am a true calling coach. If you don't know what you want to do, if you have missed out in your life on what you really wanted to do, even if you just wanted to become a rock star, give me a call, send me an email at AskJoanneVictoria.com, and let's have a chat. Okay, everybody, take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.